Hello, welcome to another edition of Extra Connections Race Talk, our little mini-series, recurring series we do here on JLJ Media under the umbrella of Extra Connections. It's all about connecting and connection. And since this new season, I've been bringing in different people to talk about different topics under race. And today we're going to talk about Black baseball. Your kids. I'll tell you what my connection is to it, and my guest is certainly connected. If you're watching the show, you can see he's in his New York Mets gear, looking very handsome, very sporty, very sporty. Yeah. If you're listening, come look at the show and see what he looks like. He's part of Black Baseball MixTape, like I say that 5 times fast. It has his own show under the umbrella of that called In the Booth, correct? Say In the Booth?
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
But he's also wrestling. He's also all kind of stuff. You've seen him on my channel 1,000 times for other things. Is my friend, collaborator, and co-conspirator, Flobo Boyce.
You know what, JLJ? It's always a pleasure getting that call, though. It's like, yes, I can finally provide value, and it's not like me going, well, "Who's Mardevil?" But thank you so much.
I know I got you on something that you know about. That's exactly. Right. I like to learn. Okay, so before we do that, of course, you guys know I do my famous or infamous list, and one day I will put them all in a book. I've been asked that if I should put them all in a book. I've been doing them for 3 years now, so why not book of lists that all have a meaning of some sort?
Yeah.
So are you ready, Flobo, for the lists?
I am as ready as I'll ever be.
How ready is that? Okay, well, how ready is that?
It's like 5 out of 10,
Okay, here we go. Reggie Jackson, Barry Bonds, Hank Aaron, Ernie Banks, Satchel Paige. Josh Gibson, Buck Leonard, Jackie Robinson, Monty Irvin. James Thomas Cool Papa Bell, Lou Brock, Roy Campanella, Oscar Charleston, Bob Gibson, Ken Griffey Jr., Tony Gwynn, Ricky Henderson. Derek Jeter, John Henry Pop Lloyd, Willie Mays, Willie McCovey, Joe Morgan, Eddie Murray. Don Newcomb, Tim Raines, Frank Robinson, Lee Smith, Ozzie Smith, Willie Stargell. Frank Thomas, Dave Winfield, Larry Doby, Kurt Flood, Mudcat Grant, Vita Blue. Bo Jackson, C.C. Sabathia, Bruce Maxwell, Tim Anderson, Ian Moeller, Bill White.
Wow, Bo Jackson.
I'm getting there. Joe, I'm not done yet. Joe Smokey Williams, George Tubby Scales, Willie the Devil Wells, John Beckwith, Turkey Stearns, the Black Baseball Initiative, Black Baseball Mixtape, In the Booth. Mamie Johnson, Monet David, Adam Jones, Effa Manley, Tony Stone, Connie Morgan, Dream Series, the LB Tour, the Breakthrough Series, the Hank Aaron Invitational, Carlos Bernier, the Black Puerto Rican, and Kurt Roberts.
Wow.
Always ask my guests just from hearing my list what their first reactions to the list.
At first, I thought you were listing Hall of Famers. Then I was like, I don't think Bo Jackson is in the Hall of Fame. But it is interesting that these are our heroes that are milestone markers, I guess, in the evolution of the game. So whether you were talking about female players like Mamie Peanut Johnson or Tony Stone, or owners like Effa Manley, it is kind of cool to see that some of my heroes on that list, especially the man himself, Frank Thomas, the Big Hurt.
I believe in the tradition of speaking out people's names. It's an ancestral tradition. You say their names in reverence. I did some of these names I do know. Some I don't. I get to look them up. I did some research, and it was cool to read a lot of this stuff and people I had no clue about. My earliest memory of a baseball player is Reggie Jackson.
Mr. October.
Pirates, of course, and the summer of Reggie Jackson. I mean, the whole thing in the 70s. Flobo wasn't even born yet. I remember that whole thing.
Okay, so you're right. I wasn't born yet. I wasn't born yet, but I will say this. As somebody who grew up in the late 80s and early 90s who didn't have cable, all the content I watched were from the 70s because it was all syndication at that point.
Yes. So you know Reggie Jackson.
Yeah, especially in New York, yeah.
And then Bo Jackson, of course, who could choose whatever he wanted to do.
Bo knows.
That was very famous in the 80s or whatever, and so he did also do baseball.
Yeah. He was actually in a Saturday morning cartoon called Pro Stars, and he was on his team alongside Michael Jordan and Wayne Gretzky, and they fought crime. I'm not making that up.
I did not even know that. Oh my, I want to
Pro
find that.
Stars.
Now I want to find that. Okay, I gotta find that. Names like Jackie Robinson, you obviously know, and Hank Aaron, those are some names. Barry Bonds has some controversy. I was living in San Francisco when it all went down.
Right.
So there's all
It
these.
shouldn't be controversial, but there is controversy. Yeah.
See, what are your thoughts on that, Flobo Boyce? Actually,
So a lot of people like
both
to
sides.
a lot of people like to consider the steroid era, which is like the mid to late '90s era, as being not counting. And Barry Bonds never tested positive for steroids, but assuming that he did take steroids, and you take that out of his history, he still has Hall of Fame numbers. And so people say, well, no, the sanctity of the Hall of Fame is this and that. I went to the Hall of Fame. Baseball, to their credit, is very open when talking about the different eras where people used to spit on the balls, spider attack, where black people couldn't play, cheating to win. I don't think why he should not be in the Hall of Fame, even if there is an asterisk saying this happened during this time. Because are you going to remove 15 years of baseball history and pretend it didn't happen? Or if you're doing that, are you really a museum? Or are you just going to be the sanctity of the sport? So I never saw that. I don't think that Barry Bonds did it personally, but I understand I'm in the minority with that. But if he did do it, then there's still enough to say he's enough to be in the Hall of Fame person.
I just know that in the Bay Area, he was like a hero, legend. It really brought it down. I mean, people were even the mention of it. And you're right, it wasn't just him. There were a bunch of big names. There was this. I'm thinking on his name. I had a huge crush on him. Big redhead. I forgot what his name was. He was
Mark
another.
McGuire?
Yes, him too.
Okay.
And I think they were coming after him. And I've heard everything you said. I've heard that. Where it's like, well, you take even if you do take that out, you still got to play in the league. You still got to be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, somehow, but people
Absolutely.
are afraid of that whole, Lance Armstrong later in the runnings, like the bike. It's people get upset. They get upset. I understand why they get upset if that is true. I understand why people get upset. I guess.
Mhm.
But yeah, he's a name. So yes. Anyways, okay. So what I want to ask. So for me, I want you guys to know I am not a baseball aficionado. I've
You
been.
should be. No, I'm just kidding.
Flo took me to a game not too long ago, and I had a good time. But I don't I haven't been to baseball games in like 20 years. I went to a couple in San Francisco. And when I was a kid, I played baseball. I actually played black baseball with black baseball players in the 70s, and we went to Hawaii and played Hawaiian teams.
What was your position, if I'm asking?
I was right field.
Oh, oh, wow. Athletic guy. I put it out there.
I used to run tracks. I used to be a runner. So
Okay.
I used to be a runner. And I was medium height. I didn't grow till after high school. I was medium height all the way up through high school. I was like 5'9", and then all of a sudden I grew up to 6 feet after. And they say it happened, but I'm like, it's really weird. It's like after
Yeah.
18, it happened.
No, me too. Me too.
Oh, you're saying okay, yeah. So, but I was right field. I was out in the sticks, everything, but I could run. I played it just so I could go to Hawaii. I mean, I literally just played. I didn't care about baseball. I wanted to go to Hawaii, so I was a very industrious young man, Flobo,
Yeah.
and we got there.
Did
We
you
got
quit on the
Hawaii.
plane right back? Like, y'all, this is where I get off.
Well, I didn't go back the next season. I didn't go back. I literally left the team.
Yeah.
I did what I needed to do, and one of those says that's so you, James. So
Yeah.
you. And I was like,
Did you play a sport that you actually loved, or was it just all industrial moves? Like, was it just like I'm going to Hawaii, I do baseball?
that's a great question. No one's ever asked me in my entire life. Um, what's really funny is I like watching football.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
played football. I didn't really care for it. I played
Me neither.
soccer. Didn't care for it. I played tennis. Didn't care for it. Um, because I was one of those gifted children. I'm putting air quotes, folks. They made me they made me like take music stuff and this. They were like, you have to do everything. You got to do sports. You got to do everything. And
Sure.
that's a good question. There's no sport. I mean, I like volleyball a little bit. I played
Yeah.
basketball a little bit. I mean, all the sports I played, it was industrial move. It was all for a reason. I never got into them so much.
Moving with attention. I like it.
That's a good question. I've never asked that question before. I just never. I mean, it was one of those things where I was told you got to do this. James, my mother forced us to play because they grew up. All the men grew up playing soccer or football, what you would call it, like that.
Right.
And so we were forced. My brother and I were forced to do it. The only thing I liked was swimming. I took swimming as a
Oh
kid.
yeah.
About
Yeah.
sport. Well, it can be a sport. I wasn't into the sport of swimming.
Yeah.
But
From
tennis, I had a left-handed tennis coach, which is cool.
Oh, that's interesting.
Flobo. It was very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm a fan too.
So I didn't like tennis. I didn't like any of this. I didn't like any of this stuff. I just did it to do it. I had to.
Yeah. I like sports enough. I think as I got awkward and older and being an athlete where you have to change in front of other people, and I was also a bigger kid, that to me was almost uncomfortable. And then you go to like the away locker rooms, they don't really give you the same kind of respect in the away locker rooms as far as like facilities. It became a grind. So like I liked swimming enough, but I would never do it. I liked soccer and gym and basketball in gym class, but if I had to go on the road with the team, I was like, I'm out. And my mom was like, look, I'm going to sign this waiver for you to do football, but if you don't finish it, you got to do student government. I'm like, ha, sucker. And I ended up doing student government in 2 weeks after that. So there you go. Mom knew what's going on. She knew. She knew.
So you did football for a couple of weeks. That was it.
As far as like varsity or junior varsity level sports, yeah, only football. But like intramurals, I did almost everything because it was important to me to tell everyone, yes, I was big, yes, I was fat, but I didn't want to be seen as lazy. I'm gonna bring it back to this because when it comes to fat people and black people, if you look at like the Venn diagram of insults, like in the middle is usually stupid and or lazy. So like I made a point to study harder. I made a point to like show up, be there early, sweat, and then go home because I live close to home. So I was like, all right, cool, sweat and go home. Once you're telling me I have to like take off my clothes and shower with other boys, I was like, I don't feel comfortable showing my naked body to people. I quit. I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, nice. That makes sense. I mean,
Uh,
well, there's the whole.
uh,
I don't. I just guess it was. I never, as you can tell, I was never a peer pressure person. So I always did what I wanted anyway back then.
Hell yeah.
But as my mother would force me to do something, she's like, "Well, you guys are all going to play soccer this summer. Get us out the house," and that was the whole thing. And so we did it because we were obedient children. But after I got to a certain age, it was like, I'm good. I can do what I want. And so I never did government either. I was like,
Oh,
never
yeah,
did
yeah.
drama. I'm like, my brother Max was all drama. I'm like, I don't do all those crazy.
So much politics in student government, man. It really is.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there
Mhm.
is. It's like, no, thank you. So I was reading a statistic about baseball, and I just surprised. I really don't watch. It's when I do see stuff, I find I see lots of brown people. But it said as opening day 2024, only 6% are black or
Yeah.
identify as black. So I saw some debates online because I mentioned one guy in here who identified as a black from Puerto Rico. He was born in Puerto Rico, but he said he was
Sure.
black. Of course, I'm Afro Latino myself. So I'm just curious. I mean, I feel like I see brown people all the time, but it's not black folks. So can you expand on that? I was really surprised.
I think everyone has their own definition with that because it is kind of fluid. But I will say this: last year it was 7%. Now it's 6%, and the issue is Black American players, not necessarily to discredit the Afro Latino experience. I mean, frankly, Afro Latinos make the world go round, whether in rhythm or sport or anything like that. But in the 70s and 80s, Major League Baseball, in an attempt to develop baseball talent at a lower economic rate, cheaper labor established camps all throughout Latin America because Americans will ask for more money, right? And a lot of people wouldn't. So when we talk about Black baseball and representation, it's not to discredit the Afro-Latino experience, and we understand they're Black if they so choose. I know there's some countries where that's a little different and people don't say they're Black, but if you identify as Black and Latino and Afro-Latino, we accept that. We're fine with that. But the idea is that these kids don't have the camps. These kids don't have the culture where baseball is part of everyday life. These kids are struggling to make the ends meet to do travel ball in the American style, as opposed to going down to the local city and going to the camp, whatever the random team established. So there's less infrastructure for Black American kids and Black Caribbean kids from non-Spanish speaking countries. Like you have Jazz Chisholm, he's from the Bahamas, so he's not Black American, he's Black Bahamian, but his experience is very similar to what a Black American kids go through, having a lack of that structure.
Well, I mean, I don't understand why that is. So you're saying it's from the back to go back to the schools, I guess. It goes
Mm.
back to the cities at school level.
Sure. So if you go way back to the days of the Negro Leagues playing, a lot of Black players didn't have the pay or didn't have the exposure as a white counterpart. So when the season was over, they will go in what is called barnstorming. You will go to different regions of the world and just play ball. And if you look at world baseball in Venezuela, in Puerto Rico, in Dominican Republic, in Korea, in Japan, a lot of these players play with the flair that Negro and Black players did back in the day. So that kind of planted the seed of kids having baseball as an option. You can go and hit a bat and be fun and be yourself, in other sports. But then there really was a concerted effort in the mid-century to invest in academies. Every baseball team has an academy in the Dominican Republic and Venezuela and even Cuba or even those other countries as well. So it is a bit of like the demand was there of people wanting to play, and then baseball responding while having that formal structure, whether it's an actual academy or having an affiliation with a local academy to teach kids a game.
Because I know for a fact to get to any national series league on any sports, it's one in a billion. I mean, like everybody, there's a million schools in the world, million
Mm-hmm.
schools in America. To become to join the NFL, be drafted in the NFL, or to be MLB or basketball, I know it's not easy already just by itself. But
Absolutely.
for me, as an outsider, it's just like I see more. Is it, or am I just seeing it as a snapshot? There's more black football players and black basketball players.
Sure. So there is a bit of like, I guess like a dip, right? We talked about that a little bit. At least from my perspective, there is a next wave, they call it, of newer black players now, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. Well, Gen Z is kind of older, but Gen Alpha coming up now, and they're kind of replenishing the numbers. But I do feel, and this is the theory I have, and please, if everyone's watching this, you have your own theories, please chime in because I want
Definitely
to
sure.
make sure I get it right. In the early 90s, there were two things that really affected baseball. One was a player strike of 94 or 93, where everyone kind of like decided to work their stuff out and there was no games. And also the steroid era. And after the steroid era, I felt baseball went insular. I started saying, we're not going to celebrate individual players anymore. We're not going to do McGuire versus Sosa anymore. We're going to concentrate on the game being a pure interpretation of America's pastime. But if you realize in the mid and late 90s, that was when basketball had Space Jam and the N1 mixtape tour, and football had Madden, and football had all these other players as well. If you were a kid of a certain age, like how I was, you kind of gravitate towards that. I grew up in Brooklyn in the late 80s, early 90s. When I was in elementary school and even middle school, I played stickball. But as soon as I got to high school, everyone went to Toys R Us and bought a Nerf ball and was like, let's play football. And then my career choice, my athletic choice in high school was football. I mean, granted, I was a bigger kid, but still, it was like we all kind of moved toward that because it was cool. They celebrate the individual. When someone signed to a minor league deal in baseball, you may not see them for 4 or 5 or 6 years while they work on their skills and work their way up the ranks. In the NBA, you get drafted, you play in G League a year, and you get to be on the team the year after. Easy peasy. And if you need that money now, you got to do it now. You can't live off minor league baseball money. You got a family to feed, you know?
It's interesting. And as I said, just I know I feel like I mean, like in California, especially, there are a lot of parks, a lot of areas, a lot of schools. So I wonder in some other parts of the country if there's I go to San Francisco, not a lot of parks, right?
Mhm.
It's always wondered from the school level, just by logistically, where is there baseball? If it's just is it just easier to have an indoor basketball court, and and is there football? I was always wondering about that also because it starts from like you said, it starts from the kids. It starts from the kids wanting to be
Yeah.
interested in it, then eventually getting really into it. Like my grandson been playing baseball since he could walk, and now
Mhm.
he's going to play baseball at a community college level kind of thing. He's doing. They just not might go pro, but right now he's been playing it the whole time.
Sure.
Like
JUCO's pretty big.
yeah, so I always wonder about that. Just I mean, it has to be from the start from there.
Yeah, and a lot of times on the Black Baseball mixtape, we'll have people and we'll say, "What's your opinion about the whole lack of black representation?" And they'll say something I don't 100% agree with, but I think it's worth saying. It's like, "Hey, look, it's a lot of money to buy into baseball, right? If you go on a travel team, they want two, three, $4,000, and you may not even play. Whereas like soccer, you can probably do a league for cheaper because equipment, you need less equipment, you need less people, that sort of thing. And so a lot of black families it's a hard financial investment. And I agree with that point because sports do cost money. I think lacrosse costs more, you know what I mean, than or baseball costs more, but football and basketball are cheaper. And there are more subsidies for local leagues for football and basketball, but then that discounts affluent black families. If you're a black family that has the money, why aren't you playing it as well? And I think it comes down to it being seen as cool. We talked about baseball in the barbershops when I was a kid, but there was a good 20 years when people stopped and it was, hey, see what LeBron did? And we just kind of shifted to other sports.
Well, there's also another controversial take
Mhm.
I've heard. I'm just sharing it for purposes of discussion.
I have a feeling. I want to write it down and send it to you,
Yeah,
but
just read my brain. No, don't
yeah,
my brain. Don't do
yeah. So scary number is. Yeah.
that. Yeah, you might get lost in there. You don't want to do that. That there's a concentrated. I'm trying to find my words carefully. There's a allegedly, excuse me, a concentrated effort to not look for black baseball players in America and to go to these low third nation, lower income Afro Latino countries like
Mm,
Venezuela and Colombia and all that stuff, and to find and really farm out these guys because they're willing to do whatever it takes to help the situation.
yeah.
You at cheaper cost. You can do whatever, and but they're like quote unquote bread better
Mm.
allegedly kind of. I've heard that story too. So I don't know
I
what your thoughts are on that.
that's not. I didn't think you were going to say that, but I'm
Oh,
glad. I'm glad. So I think there was some truth to that at some point. I do think there was some truth to what you would invest into infrastructure, things you want to get. And let's be honest, the buying value of people outside of the United States is less. So it's easy to give less money, especially when you have the international signing window. Because again, minor league baseball money is nothing. I mean, there's some levels where players have to live at people's houses. You gotta, if you're in the local community, you have to something to be a host family. So there's some truth to that. But that I do say, I think MLB, whether through altruistic means or capitalistic means, is looking around and going, oh wait, black people know what cool is, and they're not hanging with us. And so we're seeing a lot more hires of brown skinned people. We're seeing a lot more initiatives now. We're seeing a lot more things like Jackie Robinson Day was just yesterday as we record this. Like, I do think baseball realized that they were doing that method a bit too much to the point where a big cross section of our country, of our American citizens, are taking their pastimes and dollars and experience elsewhere. And you're seeing a bit of a correction with that now. But I do think that ultimately it's for a net good, but it's hard to not look at that through a jaundiced or cynical eye and be like, oh, now you want to do something for black people. You know?
my eye looking at it is also kind of that. My side eye looking at that is, well, they're still brown, folks, so we can't say nothing. Some of them look blacker than I do.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I mean, seriously, a lot of them look like me or you, and they
true.
don't speak English.
Absolutely. If you're thinking about just about the color side of things, and yeah, you can say, oh, it's a multicolor thing, but again, race as we take it is a fluid concept regionally and internationally. And I always tell people this example: if someone called me colored today, I would be offended. But in South Africa, that's actually a legal designation of people. So we talk about black and Afro Latino. If you identify as being black and you're Latino, that's one thing. But there's some individuals, and it could be the same countrymen who say, I am not black, I am this, I am that. And it's not really my job to suss through that. I guess the main issue is the Black American kids we have here should have equal access to the camps and the situations and subsidized travel ball as people elsewhere as all. It should be equal across the board in the hopes to get more black people or black kids to go, this is cool, let me try.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I know. Yeah, and that's folks. That's another discussion I'm gonna have in a later show about Afro Latino and Latino and all of
Right.
that. Because
Can't speak on that. I'm from British colonies.
I can speak on it and everything, but that's another show. I'll find
Sure,
somebody for that show.
sure, sure, sure.
But no, but you're touching on something that I just because this is a race talk, that is a part of it too. Where what do you identify as? And it's easier to have an Alex Rodriguez sometimes because he's like lighter skin with like blue eyes or whatever, and
Mhm.
play as opposed to who's dark in baseball.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah, like, we're talking baseball. Come on, Flobo. Come on,
Who's dark?
tell me a name. Tell me a name.
I mean, growing up, Roberto Clemente was a black guy to me,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, bro. Come on. That's a
So
good one. I know him. That's a good one.
he was a black guy to me, but I don't understand. He's like a very he's a Puerto Rican hero, and that
Yeah,
is somebody that embraced both his skin color and his cultural identity. It's a little bit different now with the new generations come up and how they identify that, different countries and all that. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's like, well, I mean. You black? What's up?
I remember Roberto Clemente. Okay, I do know
Yeah.
him. Okay, I do know him. Okay,
Yeah.
not like
Yeah. Yo, who's dark? I
who's
want
dark. It's my dark.
to write this down. Who's dark?
No, because that well, I just remember back in the day, another sport of soccer and Pele,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
how dark he. I mean, just but he wasn't from America. So it was a whole, and then Sammy
Mhm.
Sosa. There was a whole thing about him too back in the day with the color issues and. Did he
Oh,
get
absolutely.
lighter as he got older? Did he get dark? Like when there's a whole allegedly, sorry, like, I don't want to get sued.
Sure, sure.
Stuff that they're saying about him too.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. And it's also this thing like the Samassociating of your skin, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yes, allegedly. So I just mention that. But but I'm glad we touched on it a little bit because that is a part of this also because we talk about race.
Hmm.
Race and color go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Coloring goes hand in hand. And if you just if you tune into a game or go to a game and you're looking out there, and this is a question for you, you're looking out there okay. I'm going to make this like my soap operas. They're having problems right now with race right now too.
Okay.
You liked you liked the sport first. I'm thinking that's probably what it is. You like the sport first,
Right.
then you go into stuff. I feel like you like the soap opera first, then you start going into the intricacies of like, why does my lot look like me? So I wonder if my question for you is that so when you were growing up and stuff, or when you got into baseball,
Yeah.
um, did you connect through a black player, or did you like the game first and then found a black player to connect to?
Oh, well, it's now I can say I can watch baseball first and then go like, okay, I'm rooting for everybody black. But I actually wrote about this on my blog. Shout out to justasandwich.com. Because I live in New York and we have two baseball teams, and one of them is synonymous with victory and the sport itself
Which
and the
one is that one,
legends.
Flobo?
That's up in the Bronx somewhere. I don't know. But I'm a Mets fan. And the Mets, for a team that has been around for over 50 years, has only won the World Series twice. And one of them, 69, was literally called the Miracle Mets because no one thought we had a chance. They would say, why are you a fan of the Mets, man? And I go, well, when I grew up, and again, this is the late 80s, early 90s, there are more people that look like me playing the game. So this is after Reggie Jackson, of course.
Yeah.
But Butch Husky, Bernard Gilkey, Mo Vaughn, Gary Sheffield had one season there. These were black people that looked like me. And I was also a bigger kid. So even though Benny Agbayani is Pacific Islander, the fact that he was a thick boy running around the bases, I saw myself in a team that represented the team I'm from. And so it is kind of tragic when I look at the Mets now, and there's only one person who's biracial and identifies as black on the team, because really I was attracted to the fact that there were black and brown people, working class people for the Mets. So, but when I go to a game now, I live in LA. I will go. I go to the Dodgers, like, okay, who do I root for? Oh, Mookie Betts. He's a black guy. Go Mookie. Or if we went to an Angels game, Ron Washington is the coach now or the manager now. So I was like, okay, Ron Washington. All right, cool. So I do baseball first, then race. But as far as getting me sucked in, it definitely was that. I go, when we were kids and there's Superman, you don't really think about what color Superman is. You like his story. But then after a while, you go, well, where's my Static Shock? Or where's my Storm from X-Men? Or whatever have you. I think that's very important too, as look for representation.
So there's no black people on the Mets.
There's DJ Stewart, who's biracial. He
There's
identifies
no black
as
people.
both. But there, I'm just saying. Hey, I gotta make sure we don't get sued, man. That's
Yes, so you have one.
yeah, one. And that's, to me, it's tragic. I actually wrote about that. I
It
pleaded with the
is.
Mets. I go, look, I understand you want the best team on the field. It's a business, but the draft is in July. Do the right thing. Please do the right thing.
That's crazy. It's only one.
Doc Gooden, Darryl Strawberry. Remember those days when
I
Doc
remember them.
Gooden
I
was
remember them.
like,
I remember all of them.
it
Yeah, I
was a
remember
big
that.
deal. Yeah.
That's so I didn't know that. See, I'm learning. But I mean it I know how you phrased it earlier in the show, and I understand the way you phrased it. Because we don't really know. I mean, it could be capitalism first, and they're picking just who they feel the best is. But I guess I always go back to wondering, are they, like you said, are they really doing that? Are they really putting casting the net out there, taking the time to vet people, taking the time to go out there, and are
Yeah.
they really getting the best people?
I think it was a situation at a time where it was like, we really want to lower the cost of these contracts. And so there really was an effort to go out. But then when more black players were playing elsewhere, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, like the idea of eyes on screens. You know, we have the Super Bowl and it's a Beyonce concert, that counts, that matters. If it's a celebrity in the crowd, that sort of thing matters. And so there really was a concerted effort to go back to getting people there. But the issue is, and I think I mentioned just a minute ago, if I am 17 years old or 16 years old and I want to go enter the draft or any sport draft, and I get drafted by the Houston Texans in football, I'm on the camp 6 months from now. I get my rookie bonus. I can buy a house. I can buy an iPad. I can tell my dad, thanks for looking out for me. Here you go. Here's a wad of cash. Buy yourself something nice, pops. If I get signed to a baseball contract, I'm gonna bus to like single A Florida or double A like Chattanooga. And then I gotta grind 2, 4. The average time is 6 years before anyone sees you. That's the money that comes with it. So you're a kid and you're working in a working class Brooklyn. And it's like, look, sign this NFL contract. We'll give you 1.2 million right now. And then once you get on the team, we'll have this $4 million a year deal. You're like, okay. Whereas like, oh yeah, oh, we'll give you, or compared to baseball, we go, okay, we'll give you $900,000, but for the next 4 years, you're making $400 a month. It's like, I got bills to pay. Like, I'm an athlete, I'm young. I want to be able to make the maximize my earning potential. I want to be seen on TV screens so I can get endorsement deals. I'm not going to go to play baseball. That's why it's a two-way business thing as well.
What are the fans, in your opinion, are they pretty diverse? The fandoms, or are they?
Uh, I think there's a cross. If you're talking about ethically diverse, yes. I think the baseball's problem is that they were skewing older. I think
Oh,
the average baseball fan, it's about in their late 40s to mid 60s. And so you're seeing the rule changes over the next past couple of years to shorten the game time because they had a survey out a couple of years ago. Basically, everyone under the age of 40 was saying baseball is too boring. I can't watch it. And so you're seeing things you're trying to do to cut the timing of it. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's boring. I think it's kind of you got to educate on what to look for in a baseball game. I get that. But I think that's kind of the problem that baseball was having, that the average fan base was moving outside of a demographic that advertisers want.
okay. Now you went to the Black Baseball Hall of Fame, correct? In Kansas.
Kansas City.
What was that like for you?
It's a surreal experience. I think shout out to them, the National Baseball Museum, because they are building a new campus. But it was surreal because you're in Kansas City and it has a rich history, but the city of Kansas City is kind of unassuming, right? There isn't like a giant arrow being like Black District this way, right? But you roll in there, and I learned so much more about Josh Gibson specifically. But you roll in there, and they're just so much as far as so many trailblazers that got lost to the end of the time. We learn about Jackie Robinson. Great. That's a good starting point. But like learning about Tony Stone and Connie and Peanut Johnson was amazing. And you walk around this made field is like very small, but they have people at every position of what they did. And that's great. Or there's like a model of what the hotel accommodations were for Black athletes at that time. And it's so tragic. This wasn't 200 years ago.
Right.
This is like a generation and a half tops. And so I always laugh when other people outside of our club say, "Hey man, get over it, bro." And you're like, "I don't know, because grandpa had to go outside and eat in the kitchen because you know what I mean?" It's just it's so interesting how we have this history. It's so close to where we are now, and people think that it's done. And we're so close to going back to that. We're 1 or 2 policies away from doing this again.
Yeah. Um, Another thing that I was involved in years ago.
Mhm.
I have cousins in Cleveland, Ohio, and they're white. I come from a multiracial family, and they love me. I know they love me, and I love them, and I don't doubt. I'm close, so I go there to see them all the time. Which always prefaces first,
Preface.
in there. But one of our nights of sitting and talking, because we always have discussions. You know, when I come to visit, I inspire talk apparently on
Well,
a very degree of subjects, which I like. I'm here. I want to hear what the Midwest has to say. I love Cleveland. I love my cousins. But one night we're talking about the Wahoo.
oh, Chief Wahoo. Got it.
Yes, and how the Indians there wanted to change it because it was very offensive, and I find it very offensive also. And I sat around And my mouth basically dropped the conversation because for them, every reason why it should stay. There was nobody there. There's one cousin said I changed their mind. One cousin said I changed their mind. Cousin Kim, the girl.
Mhm.
The rest of them didn't change their mind. They were like, at the end of the conversation, they heard I said, they heard everything I said. We talked about it. It was actually it was a great conversation. But in the end, it was like, you're not from Cleveland.
Mhm.
Had nothing to do. I mean, they just eschewed race, caricature, cartoonery.
Sure.
They were like, it's an homage. It's always been. I mean, these are words I'm hearing. It's always been this way. It's an homage. And I would go, but the Indians would tell you that they don't like it. Well, they should get over
Mhm.
it. Is like we know we don't look at them that way. Like all this stuff, all this kind of gaslighting. Also, it was very interesting for me, and I noticed there's several teams. This happens. It's happening in football. It's just like this, where they want to change names
Right.
of certain places, the Atlanta Braves, So what? Okay, so what are your thoughts on all of that?
On Chief Wahoo or just in general?
In general, I mean, it could be anything. In general, of name changing of things that were named originally.
Sure. I look, I understand. Okay, let me preface
Yeah,
this. So 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 so
preface.
so three weeks ago I went to Truist Park, which is the home of the Atlanta Braves. And I say this with all due respect because everyone says, "Oh, you're wearing Mets gear. You don't understand Atlanta." My tour guide jumped through so many hoops to talk about the founding of the team that became the Atlanta Braves and how one tribe is working with them and how he fails to see the controversy. And I go, I get if you disagree about the
Right.
controversy, right? But I went to a Atlanta Braves Texas Rangers game where Atlanta Braves fans were away and they were putting their hands to their mouths and making the sound and doing what's known as the chop. And the Braves organization leans into that. Their restaurant's called the Chop House. The little tomahawk is everywhere. And it's like, you know what you're doing because you don't chop as a friendly gesture, but you're also associating it with a band of people, not an animal. You aren't the Atlanta Hammers, you aren't the Atlanta Bears. You're saying that. If you want to keep the name and make it Braves, great, but the imagery is linked. I go to Chief Wahoo, and I think, yes, people identify to their teams as part of their identity. I tell people this all the time. I see someone in Japan with a Mets hat, I'm going to talk to them. But you cannot deny that Chief Wahoo is painted fire truck red, teeth large, wearing a single feather, smiling at me. What quote unquote Indian, which is the name of their team,
Right.
does that represent? Tell me.
Right.
And if you can't, then that's a problem. If you're Cleveland, you could say I'm not from Cleveland, but a team doesn't get money from the fans who go to games 3 times a year. They get fun money from conferences. They get money from visitors. They get money from people who say, hey, let's check out this team. And so if the Indians go on a nationwide tour, that represents your city in not a good light. Change that. Like it doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? Like if the word metropolitan became offensive tomorrow, I would be sad about it. But you have to realize it has to affect people negatively to make that change. No one's bored. No one's asking for a change for the sake of change. Someone complained for a reason. Atlanta, Washington, Cleveland, you know.
Redskins, yes, Washington.
Yeah.
All that. I mean, and these are areas that have large Indian populations. I mean, that's the thing. So, I mean, to me, it'd be different. I agree with you. I feel like you can see it, folks. I mean, you can see it. You're choosing not to see it. But disagree is one thing. You disagree, but
Yeah.
come on, folks. I mean, it's a cartoonery picture of an Indian. It's not even like it was. Like it was if they would do something beautiful, maybe change it. I mean, there's all kind of Indian
Right.
clothes that you could do.
Right. And I think that's it. I know it's very easy if someone you don't understand, but I go back to the Atlanta Braves, for example, and someone tells me this, the gymnastics. Hey, the Braves means are courageous and they're working with a single tribe to say that. I was like, well, in the 80s, you literally had a mascot called Chief Nakahoma. Explain that one, please. And his wife, Prince Winalata. Explain that, Atlanta, please. So I go back to Cleveland and I understand. They go, well, you don't know, you're from California or whatever, but hello, your team is being represented by your city. The Guardians were a weird name, but the Guardians won the World Series. We wouldn't have cared. The name changed.
Right. Yes.
Nakahoma. Are you
I
kidding
know.
me?
I actually remember. I actually remember that. I was with that years. I remember that. It's like, I just, well, I basically ended the conversation with, okay. I said that. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not from Cleveland. You're absolutely correct. I am not
Right.
from Cleveland, and thank you, Jesus. But it gave me a perspective also that for these white folks, they don't want to think of their team as racist. It's the same with the soap operas. They don't want to think their show is racist. There are things happening optically, which you know that's one thing. Perception is
Mhm.
99%, or happening for real internally. You don't want to believe that. You don't want to think your team is racist. Just want to enjoy your baseball. Or that's I kind of I get. It's like I want to enjoy my sausage. I don't want to see how it's made.
Right. Right. And I was that way too. I'm not even white, but I get that. Like, I'm gonna work hard for the money. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna flip on the game. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's just a game. But you really want your team to represent the best of your city or the best of what you're looking for. Nothing that's like weird or like kind of detracting or whatever. So like, I can't think of an example here locally in Los Angeles. But at the same time, if someone came to me outside and say, "Hey, look, I don't appreciate that." I owe it to them to at least look and understand and say, hey, look, this is where it came from. Let me know if it needs a change. But to sit there and say, oh no, it's you people problem, change it back. It's like, well, don't mess with my status quo.
I think for Black folks or people of different other groups, it is hard for us, even harder because we do want to go and just want to watch the game. I think a lot of folks. I think there is some legitimacy to that. There are a lot of folks who they just want to. Okay, it's Thanksgiving. After we eat, we watch a football game. You don't want to think about all the racism
Yeah,
and the colorism and
absolutely.
you don't think about
You
that
just
stuff. You
want
just
to
want to watch the game.
turn your brain off.
Right.
Like I think about the Texas Rangers, for example, and I went to see the Texas Rangers game, and here's the conflicting thing as a black person, right? So it was Rangers Braves, and it was just like the most. It was just I felt uncomfortable the first time and only time in baseball because it really was Texas first Atlanta, and it was chops, and it was like whatever. The crowd was diverse, right? It was black people, it was white people, it was Hispanic people, but then you have but the thing is at the same time, I am watching a team that does a chop against the only team in baseball that refuses to have a pride night. Now let's be real. There's 82 baseball games at home, 81. You can throw a pride night on a Tuesday afternoon and be
Right.
done with it. The
Right.
Rangers made a conscious effort to be like, no, there's faith and family night. There's Christian night. But you say, so I'm sitting there going like, well, why am I conflicted in watching a baseball game? And I know people say, I don't want politics. I want to explain. Hey, LeBron, shut up and dribble. Get your politics out of my sport. But here's the thing. Sport are played by people. People have opinions, they have
Right.
thoughts. You can't separate them. And I really would like to go to a team that has a pride night because it takes zero effort. It was 81 home games. It's like 2 seconds.
A lot of gay folks like the sports.
I mean that yes, that too. I don't even discount that, but I'm just kind of like the most low effort thing you choose not to. And on the other side, you have someone who's really doing a racist gesture, and I'm sitting in the middle of it, being from an outside town, going, I don't think anyone realizes how messed up this is. Maybe I should keep myself quiet and be in the corner. Okay, I do that personally. I ain't coming back. But if someone speaks up and goes, "Look, man, this is my thing," I have to support that because it's true. I did not feel welcome at all in Arlington.
I do want to bring up gay folks also quickly does like sports, and that's a large audience also. And
Right.
if you're going to do faith and family nights, or you're going to do this kind of night or this kind of night, if that city's occupants are asking for and they support your team, I mean they're spending money going to games. I
Right.
saw people those lines, those concession stands were long. People were
Absolutely.
fucking buying food all day long. So they're helping support your team monetarily. You trying to tell me you don't want them to watch your games anymore? You want them to say no? I know the whatever.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. Like, okay, not to put it aside. I understand. You look at all the theme nights you have, and you go, oh, maybe try the new things. But like, again, if 29 teams are doing something, and you choose, like, I can imagine being a team not having an armed services night. If all the teams do it, if I do that, then people are like, well, why do you hit the troops? Oh, well,
Right.
are you anyway? The point I'm trying to say is there's plenty of times for politics and sports to intersect, and it's very easy to say, "Oh, I don't care. I want to watch my game." But it starts to matter because you're putting your money in, you want to support something that is a positive for the community you either are living in or you identify with.
But I tell people for my rebuttal to them is though is, but a lot of teams do a lot of community outreach. So that's what they do because their names. A lot of them do. They do
I,
community outreach. They support certain local chapters of things, and a lot of things with police. Sometimes are out there shaking arms, hands with policemen, and so I feel like so I just feel like it should be well rounded. It should be
it's a carbon offset. Like I get putting money on there, having a charitable foundation, but you have to. If you're a sport team, and again, hopefully I don't get to have enough money to buy a team. I'd be the worst at this. You got to be able to represent the community that you're there. Like if
right.
your people coming to your game, you got to give them. You got to say thank you. Also, they'll never come back.
Yes, I agree with that.
I am a LA Galaxy season. I know it's a soccer thing. I'm an LA Galaxy season ticket holder this season, but for 10 years I wasn't because I, as a black person, would go to the games and be surrounded by LA County sheriffs. Now, of all the law enforcement in Southern California, the LA sheriffs are the most intimidating force in the area. And so I stopped going. I was like, I'm not going to pay money to feel like I'm a prisoner at a team I watch. And then when that presence changed, then I decided to buy back in again. You know?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just saying. I mean, I think we're saying two sides of the same coin. I'm just saying.
Hell yeah, we are.
I just want to make sure it's clear out there because I mean that the queer community does like sports and they do spend their money,
Right.
and that's the bottom line. I mean, to me, none of these teams will survive without money. So that's kind of that's just.
But it matters. I understand a lot of times people compare the LGBT civil rights movement to the black civil rights movement, and then that gets to be a little messy because then you have to like this, you have to discount black gay people, right? But anyway, what I'm saying is I can't stand and have a team being like not honored, knowing full well that 30, 40 years ago, I had to go to a separate league to watch my people play. Like that to me is the worst. And to be honest with you, the integration of baseball, the Negro leagues and the American leagues merging, was it because white people were like, you know what, we're doing this wrong? It was all financial. Like the reason being is that during the war, the quality of black base or white baseball declined because we had too many people in the service, and people went to black games because they were better and they made more money at the gate. And MLB wanted him back in. That is a fact. I can tell you that. I can quote that top to bottom. And that was a big process because it killed the Negro leagues to make the MLB survive. So I'm knowing that, and there's a people outside who live in your city and they can't even get a night to themselves. To me, it's so unfair. Like, come on, and it's not hard.
I agree with you, and you are a great ally. We love that. But the thing is, I'm just saying, it all goes back to money. You just made a point. It goes back to money. I know this is all a business, and as we know, and I'll say it. I don't give a shit.
Mhm.
Black folks, when they become super popular or something, white folks come in.
Yeah,
In
I think there's
many areas of life, they do that. I mean, it's not just me just making that up as like shits and giggles. It is proven out there that certain things in certain areas of life, we start something, it becomes really big, or they build things on our backs, our viewership, i.e., UPN, Fox, WB's on the TV channels, and then dump us, become CW, no black shows. And I'm just saying, it kind of happens. And then again, you can look it up yourselves. I'm not making
yeah.
shit up. You can look it up yourselves. Like it's kind of like, so you saying that, I'm not surprised about
Oh,
that.
absolutely. I think a lot of times with our culture, and that the culture is a very moving, fluid thing, though. But it is kind of like a farming situation, and we saw that with the black exploitation movement in the '70s. Right, white confidence in paying for movies declined after the Vietnam War. A lot of families kept inside insular. Then it was a rash and uptick of black cinema. Same in the early '90s Renaissance. The market had the correction in the '80s. People weren't going to movies anymore. Then came the Boys in the Hood era. Right, like that's been a part of our history. And that's not saying it's okay. I am used to that. I just don't want it to happen here as well, but it is happening.
Yes, you're used to it. I'm older than you are. Shit. Like I say about that. It's
Right.
getting crazy. No, and this is not even a discussion. This is just a footnote. I can't imagine what it's like to be black in hockey.
Oh yeah.
There's only a few. There's only a few there. I'm saying we won't get into. I can't even get into that discussion. I'm just saying. I just want to make a little footnote on that one.
If you hit up PK Subban on Twitter and be like, or X, you'd be like, yo, what's up? How's it be? He'll tell you. Like, he's like, yo, Nashville hated me, bro. It was just,
I was like,
oh,
it's a trip. I said that's one sport. I'm like, that's a trip. I'm like, there's not many black folks over there. So I'm
oh
like,
yeah. Yeah.
I like that. We have some golfers. We have some tennis folks. Tennis
Sure.
folks. But yeah, that one, I'm like, yeah, not many running over
But
there.
it's funny about the black experience in athletics that we're not traditionally associated with. Because there's a part of us being like, no, we want to be the best athletes there. But underneath that, you're like, yo, I'm rooting for that black guy. I hope he hope he reads everybody. I hope he come in Tiger Woods the whole thing. Right? Why?
Oh, Tiger, that's no show by itself too. Oh, Tiger, oh, Tiger. We succeeded in a lot of things, folks, and and he just couldn't keep his pants closed. But he's still a good player. I mean, you still can't, Serena Williams, Venus. I mean, Serena was better. They both were good, but she just happened to be, the
Yeah,
best.
yeah, gotta be the best.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of very interesting. I was thinking about Layla Ali going into female boxing after her dad.
Right.
Her dad, one of my personal heroes, Muhammad Ali. It's just interesting. Like just it's all the sports and the black. I feel like a lot of it is more. The color is green. I always say about Hollywood. I say about everything else. I feel like the number one color is green. If they
Hmm.
think it will make money, then they will go for it.
Absolutely. And I
You can
know this is not a
please go ahead.
So I know it's not a sport, but I feel like in professional wrestling as well. 5, 6 years ago, we had like the first black main event at WrestleMania between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. We just had the first ever black main event at NXT, Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams. Like that wasn't a thing 5, 10 years ago. And now we have the first ever, well, the second ever Puerto Rican champion in Damian Priest, first one in 50 years. Like I understand when we go to diversity, typically it's a financial or money thing. You see how DEI programs are taking a lot of cuts now that the economy is back. I just putting it out there. You guys make your own assumptions.
Yeah, but I get that money is what makes the world go round, and so when I have these race talks about certain things, when it comes to anything as a commodity, I try to remember that and put it out to people out there watching and listening. That's I know some of it is that it's just that they only think of diversity when it will bring them money.
Hmm.
They do a Black Panther, but there weren't a million Black Panthers out there, which is really interesting. Like
True.
they weren't, it just weren't.
Absolutely.
For every may he rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. There aren't a lot of Kobe Bryants running around there. But it's just like there's just like someone big gets big, and then try to tear down Michael Jordan from that series that they put out on HBO or whatever. It's like or
Oh,
ESPN or whatever. About he's
no.
like he was mean and all that. It's like of course we have that stuff happens, but of course that's all about money.
Mm,
It's all about money. I think that's just makes it wrong. I mean, that's what it is. And I have to, as you and I navigate this world, a lot of times in the entertainment business and stuff, we have to realize sometimes it may not even be about me
yeah.
personally. It's I don't fit what they think will make money.
I mean, shout out to the people now that do it for the love of the game, but it is a conversation because sport is a business. So even if you're a player now and you're of age, you're thinking about how you can do this on the big stage and provide for your family. So like it is a two-way thing. I think it's kind of an agreement. And every time that's why I don't go to Dodger Stadium because they have the highest money for a beer. By the time I drop a $24 on a can of beer at Dodger Stadium, I go, yeah, that's it's all a money game. But beyond that, I like to think, or at least pretend it's a love of the sport, as how we remember it, watching the Sandlot as a kid, playing stickball in the streets and all that jazz.
Killing me Smalls, yes.
Yeah, yeah, Killing Me Smalls.
We love the Sandlot. Well, I will end on this. This is an ongoing discussion, folks, and we even though we solved the world's problems here, no, we didn't solve them. We will continue to talk about them and bring attention to them. That's all I try to do is bring up conversation and talk. So you at home continue it. So please comment on the bottom. Tell me what you think. You guys usually do. But I love it. I like to hear people who are into baseball sports. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more of what you think about our conversation because I'm curious to hear, and I might read them on air after time. So and write something more than just like James. I think you know what you're talking about. Someone told me that recently in
Wow.
content.
Was it
I'm like,
me?
this
It
time
sounds like something I would write. Nah,
it's like something you'd write. Either way, I'm like, elaborates. Like, what did I not know? The whole thing? I mean, talk about like 10 topics. I don't know what I
Right.
don't know. So I chuckled to whoever you are out there. I chuckled. Thank you. But tell me what I did wrong, but I don't know. I would love to hear that. Flobo Boyce. So tell us all your baseball related stuff
Sure.
first, and then your other stuff where you can find all your goodness.
Absolutely. Well, if this as me, I'm a long time fan of the game. Frank Thomas, my favorite guy growing up. He's injured now, but Devin Williams, the guy I watch now. But I am a contributor on the Black Baseball Mixtape. It's a podcast and website. Learn more about that at blackbaseballmixtape.com. We worked alongside the Players Alliance. That's the organization run by CC Sabathia and Curtis Granderson, trying to get the word out there about the rise of Black players and the sport culture as well. I have my own sports and comedy blog. It's kind of a side project, but it's called justthisandwich.com. Things that make me laugh. I put things, different spin on it, from wrestling to baseball and more. Justthisandwich.com. And of course, man, check me out on that X at Flobo Boyce. Check me out on that Instagram at Flobito. Just say what's up or anything that James does. I kind of hang around. I'm in the back. I'm kind of in his house right now, actually. It's kind of the magic television. Just say what's up.
Uh, I was going to say, it made me laugh. I was going to say something. That's what I was going to say. Made me chuckle. Yes, we'll put the stuff in the description below, so you can go ahead and make sure you follow him and tell him what a great commentator he is on
Please
that.
do.
And side note, he did go to Dubai. You want that? And you did.
I did. Yeah, Baseball United was cool because they had a whole new league they want to launch in the region, and guys like Dita Gregorius, who went through the whole Black Baseball thing, was out there, and I got to fly out there alongside Black Baseball Mixtape. We had a lot of interviews. We had a Akeem Bustic. We had Shed Long on some of his calls. Reggie McClain, I had sat down with them for 20 or so minutes on that as well. So it's kind of cool to be the first Black outlet covering this brand new league out in a whole new region in the Middle East.
Very cool. That's very cool. Where all James Lott Jr.'s are at James Lott Jr. Across all social media platforms. Extra Connections is on Facebook. Exactly. So go ahead and follow us on Facebook. JLJ Media is there. We're also, this show is on every streaming service platform you can think of. Go to Extra Connections. And all the race talks are subtitled, so you'll see them in there. We've been doing this for like 3 years, so me and different others. And then you're on YouTube, JLJ Media. Go ahead and like, subscribe, subscribe
Do it.
please. Subscribe, please. No. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.